Very exciting, isn't it? Feel free to ask any questions too tonight, because there's not too many people. That's fine, and I hope you're not too bored. So it's a story. So thank you all for coming as well. Rainy night.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming along on such a cold and miserable night, but we really appreciate you being here. This is our second Melbourne University Health Initiative public lecture for the year, and our public lecture program is specifically aimed at bridging the scientific community with the wider community in order to facilitate health equity and empower our society with knowledge. So thanks for being here, guys. Tonight we are fortunate enough to have Mr. Tim Conolan. Tim is the founder of TLC for Kids, which is a non-for-profit organisation aims to ensure children in hospital receive the emotional and practical support they need. Since establishing TLC for Kids in 2008, Tim has assisted more than 4 million sick children and their families, which is a pretty amazing feat. In light of his inspiring efforts, Tim was awarded the Australian of the Year Australia's Local Hero Award in 2014. Tim, along with TLC for Kids, hopes to make 2014 the year of the smile, aiming to provide every sick child in hospital a cause to smile. So we'd like to thank you for coming along, and also remind you that tonight's attendance is for a gold coin donation, which hopefully we're going to put all the proceeds towards Tim's foundation and help him out with giving him and TLC for Kids a cause to smile. So if you could join me in welcoming Mr. Tim Conolan.
Well done. Thank you. I'd like to turn this on. Or is it on?
It should be. Can everyone hear?
Can you hear that?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh. Is there a clicker or just the arrow down?
Just the arrow down.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Very professional. Thank you very much. It has been a bit of a journey for me, especially this year's been very, very exciting. So there's some great opportunities for TLC for Kids, and I'll certainly go into those shortly. What I'd like to start with, though, is basically a snapshot of the non-profit sector, which many of you would probably know, or some of you may not. But there's over 600,000 registered charities and organisations operating in Australia at the moment. There's an average of 1,700 new charities being registered every year. And one of the big surprising facts, that top point there, is 1 in 15 people actually work for a charity or non-profit organisation in Australia. Makes it one of the largest industries in Australia. One point I did leave off here as well is that within the non-profit sector, it generated about $43 billion on the GDP. Was in 2009, so it makes it was the third largest sector on the planet, which is huge. It's a very big industry. One of the biggest problems that is faced within the non-profit sector, though, is a duplication of services. And unfortunately, there's a lot of limited research done before people do set up a new charity or a foundation, which also adds to the stresses, I suppose, and the challenges that non-profits do face on a daily basis. I'll give you a very quick snapshot and brief history of my life before I set up TLC for Kids. Back in 1989, 1990 and 91, I was doing motivational work for kids in high school that were facing stresses of their last year exams. I was also doing work with street kids, trying to get kids off drugs and I suppose having a bit of a healthier and happier life, which was all very difficult, and that was through the Salvation Army. And prior to that, what got me into the motivational work, I had a gymwear label with my brother, so we were making clothing. And unfortunately, we, I suppose, trusted a couple of the wrong people, and we lost the business, and to the tune of almost $500,000 when I was 20 years old. So trying to find some support and look for some way out. Went to a couple of agencies about what our options were, and one was to sign a piece of paper and just declare bankruptcy and walk away from the debt. The other was to work very hard and try and pay that debt off. And as I could walk and talk and still use my arms and legs, I thought, well, I couldn't just sign a piece of paper. So started the 13 to 14 hour days working very, very hard and paying off most of the debt. But during that stage also lost everything we had. So it was a very successful business, but unfortunately we lost our cars, our land and everything we had financially. Now through life you go through a couple of major changes, I suppose, and the biggest challenges you face would be financial loss, physical loss or emotional loss. And going through the financial loss but always keeping a positive attitude, I was working with some of our friends that were part of the YMCA camp counselling leadership group, and they were fascinated that had such a positive outlook on life even though I went through so much financial loss. And they said you should tell people about this and tell people how you got through it and how you kept a positive outlook all the time. So my brother and I started motivational seminars, and that's where we were working with East Street kids and the school kids. And in 1991 I was invited to a camp that was working with cancer kids, and it was a 4-day camp, and they said if we can come down there and do the motivational seminar for these kids. So this is the first time I was involved with anybody that was sick. I've had a very fortunate life, so nobody back then, nobody that I knew in my family or friends had any illness at all. And going on this camp was a real eye-opener for me because I didn't realise how sick people could be. And about 40 odd kids on the camp, and one in particular, his name is Francis, and he was only 17 years old. So at this stage I was only 21 and a half, so I was 4.5 years older than this young fella, and he had cancer in his lungs and he was very, very sick. And unfortunately he was the sickest kid on the camp. So the day after the camp finished, Francis gave me a call and he said unfortunately he's got back from the doctors and they've given him some pretty bad news and they've given him about a month to live. I was knocked off my feet at this stage. I thought, well, you read about this in a book or you see it on a movie, but you never actually hear those words from someone. So I went round and I saw Francis and I sat with him for quite some time. And part of the motivational work I was doing was teaching people how to set goals and do affirmations and at least think positively. So I got Francis to draw a picture of himself, how he was with his illness and how he was feeling. And then I asked him to draw a picture of himself, how he wanted to be and how he could see himself possibly in the future. And in that the drawing that he had was, he was standing on a beach, he was standing on the shore, he had a surfboard under his arm, he had a new pair of Nike runners on, it was all blue skies and he was happy. I said, well, this is great, so look, we'll just throw the drawing away because that's finished and let's just look at this drawing. So we put a lot of energy into that and we started doing some, I suppose, affirmations and some positive thinking. And because I went through so much financial loss, I still didn't have any money. And I called Nike and Rip Curl and I said, look, can you guys help us out because I've got to get this stuff for this kid because he's not well. I don't think he's going to be with us very long. And they helped out with a pair of runners and surfboards, and I thought, well, that was very easy to do. And for his breath, part of the motivational work was teaching people how to do a very basic meditation. So I sat down with Francis, his mother and his nurse. It was a Friday afternoon, and I talked him through a very basic meditation to try and get this breath without any pain. And it took about 45 minutes, and during the meditation I just said keep on breathing in and just picture everything that's just good, positive energy. And he actually took 3 deep breaths without any pain at all. And the nurse turned and said, I don't know how this happened because he was that sick and his chest used to only move 7 or 8 millimetres each time he breathed. And he actually took these really deep breaths, and it was so emotional. I thought, this is amazing. I've got to help this kid reach one of his biggest dreams. So I left Francis that afternoon, and I was going back there, and I remember this just so vividly. It was I was supposed to go around about 4 o'clock on the Monday afternoon to see him again, and I got a phone call from his mum at about 11 o'clock in the morning to say that unfortunately Francis just passed away. So I went round and saw Vivian, his mum, and I sat with her for a couple of hours, and as we chatted, she said that Francis, because he was a sporty kid, he loved life and he knew that everybody had done everything for him, and he was truly happy, he was satisfied, he wasn't bitter. He said, but the thing he wanted to do the most was have one more breath so he could feel like a normal kid just one more time. And she said, you gave him that breath. And as soon as she told me that, I thought, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm so fortunate to be so young to know how I can make a difference and what I could do. So I've got Francis' photo on my desk. I think of him every day, and he's on my shoulder, so he's incredible inspiration, and he's the reason why I got into the charity field. So for fast forward 7 years, and during that 7-year period, I was keen to try and help as many kids as I could, but also had to work out how to raise money. So my brother and I, yet again, were doing drug and alcohol-free concerts for kids in Geelong and some of the regional areas that we could try and get kids off the street, raise some money, and then spend that money on sick kids in hospital. Unfortunately, it was a very costly exercise, and I don't know why kids didn't want to come to drug and alcohol-free concerts. It's just one of those things that didn't happen. So ended up just working with 6 different families down at Geelong. It was some great experience as well. So it was feeding the lions at the zoo. Young Michael, his big wish was to fly in a stunt plane. So this was all organised. We got a little cubby house for a little boy. It was as many sort of activities as we could to help these kids feel normal and not have the focus on the illness. But what happened with Michael? So after he got the wish to fly in the plane, he became, I suppose, his health took a bit of a turn, and he had to get transferred to the Children's Hospital up here in Melbourne. And I was living in Geelong at that time, and I was working with those kids down there. But I'd organised a phone call from Jimmy Barnes for Michael's birthday. And this is back in 1998, so we didn't have emails and technology. And Jimmy was actually calling we'll call it a brick for now. But that meant that I had to actually be at the hospital by Michael's side. So I called up the hospital, and that's when I met Anna Darris, who was in the Public Affairs Office. So I'll give you the scenario how the phone call went. I said, hi, my name's Tim Conolan. I'm helping these kids down in Geelong. One of the kids got transferred to your hospital. I want to come in because I've got this phone call coming from Jimmy Barnes, but I have to be there. And her response was, who are you? Why do you want to come to the hospital? These are my kids, so I don't just let anybody in the hospital. So I need police checks, I need references, I need your history, and I need it all faxed. So I didn't see email, I said faxed. Faxed to me straight away. So I faxed all the information off, and I thought it was good because she was protecting the kids that she was working with, and she felt that every kid in that hospital were her responsibility. So as it turned out, I was working very closely with a family that she knew, so she did her background check. Then she called me back and said, okay, I'm going to let you come in to the hospital and visit Michael. So when I arrived at the hospital, and during this time as well, because I knew about a lot of the other charities and I knew the size of the Children's Hospital and how many kids had gone through the system. And I thought, I was working literally with 6 families. I couldn't really offer anything more apart from what I was doing for a few kids. So Anna took me up to see Michael. The phone call came through from Jimmy Barnes, and he spent about 15 minutes on the phone with him. So it wasn't just a happy birthday, it was a conversation. When Michael hung up, he said it was literally the best day of his life. And I said to Anna, I thought it was so easy to organise, and it made such a difference to this kid because, it touched on his emotional well-being, it made him feel normal, and it made him feel special, and it took his attention off being sick. So Anna thought, well, come and meet a couple of the other kids and just have a bit of a chat. And there was one little girl, her name was Peter Farish, and she had cystic fibrosis. Now, many of you would know what it is. It's a terrible, terrible disease. All the diseases are bad, but unfortunately this one had taken a bit of a turn for the worse for young Peter. And when I walked in the room, it was very sombre, like everybody was very quiet, and she hadn't smiled for about 3 weeks. And she was hooked up to about 5 different machines and all the lights and all these little tiny noises going off. And the first thing I said to Peter was, oh, looks like a disco in here. And she laughed. And I thought, well, because I just saw a girl, lying down. I didn't see an illness. I didn't see a sick person. I thought, well, she just needs to have a bit of a laugh. So we had a bit of a chat. And because I treated her like, I suppose, a normal person, she was very comfortable to talk with me. And I found out that she loved Celine Dion. So I kind of got in contact with Celine Dion's management. I got a poster signed, and she was in Las Vegas at the time, and she actually sent it through and arrived about 2 weeks later and got the poster done for Peter. But during that time, I had a chat to Anna. I said, well, you know, because I'm working with these 6 families and all these charities be looking after the kids, there's no need for my sort of support. And the scary thing was about 80% of the kids that were in the hospital at any one time weren't fitting the criteria of these larger organisations. Either they'd had support in the past, they might be sometimes literally on the wrong ward. For example, it might be a cancer patient that's lost a leg, so they've gone to the orthopaedic ward. So any of the cancer support networks may have missed out on that person. They may have been in an accident which didn't classify them as an illness-related injury. So too many kids were falling through the gaps, and I spoke to doctors and nurses and I said, what's missing? Because this is, for me, it doesn't make sense. And I suppose what I'd like to make very clear, it wasn't through a personal experience with somebody that I physically knew, it wasn't a family member, it wasn't my child, it was just, I saw a need that wasn't being met. And the doctors got back to me and said, well, a charity that was missing is a charity that worked with any child for any reason in a really short turnaround time and not have a waiting list. That's the thing that was missing back in 1998. So I thought, well, okay, well, I'll start that charity then, because, you know, it just makes no sense. And I didn't want to duplicate a service. That was very important to me, because I feel there was enough charities out there and enough resources being spent. And my goal was to have a charity that would encourage the bigger charities to start opening their doors a little bit more, covering a few more of the kids that were missing out, and that way I could go back to, well, I used to be a DJ, so go back to DJing. That didn't happen. So I suppose the concept of the word illness and who needs the help and why kids are special and who needs more help than others was beyond my understanding. This is just an example of the type of illnesses. We did a study on the requests that we received, and this is literally just a handful of the names, and some of these names, you know, I've been working in this industry for 23 years and I still can't pronounce a lot of them. But I don't see these words, if that makes sense. I just see the kids that need the help. It's got nothing to do with their condition. When we receive a request, we do ask for the condition to be listed, because that way we know that we're not going to be fulfilling like a ride on a motorbike for a kid in a wheelchair, for example. So it just helps us to understand, I suppose, some of the sensitivity behind the requests. But it was quite shocking to see just how many kids and how many conditions there are. And what was disturbing about this slide in particular is that a lot of these kids didn't fit the criteria, a lot of these other charities, because they weren't pigeonholed. And I thought that was, you know, very disturbing. So we developed the programs to make sure that we're providing that service for the kids. And we've broken up our system, our services, into 2 main programs. One is our Rapid TLC program. Just last year it was 448 individual requests we received. So at the moment we're receiving about 8 requests per week. And we're receiving requests for these kids that are going through critically challenging situations. So it might be literally paying for a funeral for a family that can't afford it. It might be paying for accommodation or transportation. It might be even providing a laptop so that the kids can keep up to date with their schoolwork, or at least communication with their friends and family while they're in hospital. Or it might be as simple as even clothes. And I'll share just a couple of examples with you. Just a few weeks ago, and I suppose the saddest part is this isn't even the only time we've received a request like this. A little boy that was only 9 months old was literally dumped at the hospital with a blanket and a Harry Potter book. And the family couldn't handle it, so they dropped him off and they left. So we got the phone call about 10 minutes after the child was there to see if we can do something, and we got a whole lot of clothes and toys and items for the child. So he was immediately put into foster care, and it's terribly sad that these things are happening, but they are happening, and they're happening in our own backyard. So we see the pointy end of the stick, unfortunately. And a lot of the requests that we receive, and why a lot of people haven't heard about TLC for kids, it's very hard for us to get any publicity, or even in the media. I've been, as I touched on before, very fortunate. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on, that we've had some good exposure this year. But a lot of people don't like hearing about some of the, I suppose, less attractive sides of healthcare for kids. Not a lot of people like to hear about a child that has to have their skin grafted and scrubbed in a burns bath twice a day because, the family's not around, so we have gifts waiting for these kids to try and cheer them up a little bit. But they're very awkward situations. We always call it's an emotional roller coaster because we have some incredible highs of what we've been able to do for some of these kids, but gee, we get some stories that just tear your heart out. So I think we're investing in Kleenex very soon because it is something that gets used quite a lot at the office. But it's a very unique program, and if I may, when I started TLC for Kids, my goal was to have a blanket situation and a system that would cover all these kids that were missing out. So for the first couple of years, and as I touched on before, I used to be a DJ, so I was a professional DJ for 13 years. So for the first 2 years of TLC for Kids' existence, I was working 4 nights a week because we couldn't raise the money because people didn't understand that any kid needed help. So I was working 4 nights a week and DJing and 7 days a week with TLC, and I was putting all my own money into it to make sure it kept on running. And then about 2.5 years after we started, a lot of the nursing staff started identifying children that were sort of standing out and missing out from other children. And not all kids go through the hospital system need that support because they have a great family base or they might have the skill set or at least coping mechanisms, but some of these kids were falling through the gaps and need that bit of extra attention. So that's where we fine-tuned the program called Rapid TLC. So it was purely for critically challenging situations where healthcare professionals will refer the kids to us. So we don't take solicitation directly from children or families, and we don't have staff working in the hospitals to try and find kids that need our help. We're completely reliant on the staff that we get in contact with, or they get in contact with us, and they pass a bit of a screening system. So at the moment we've got 238 referral staff, be it their doctors, nurses, social workers, healthcare professionals that are referring kids to us, as I said, on a daily basis. And why I wanted to bring that up because the program changed from what I wanted, this umbrella sort of situation, down to a very unique and specific program. And even though it was so needed and it was a critical part of what was going on for these few kids, I still had this focus on all kids, or all kids that actually needed us. Then in 2003, one of our former board members was a healthcare play therapist. So we did some research and we found out there was a program that started back in the 1980s, back in the UK. It was distractional therapy. So they were using toys and items to distract the kids. So instead of using their pain relievers and sedatives or whatever it was, they were using items that the hospital staff had bought and engaged with the kids. So we looked at all the research that was done, we looked up any research papers all around the world, and there was nothing that was a formalised program. So there are a few hospitals here and there on a few individual wards that were doing something, but nothing that was on a much larger scale, especially on a national scale. So we developed our Distraction Box program. And as soon as we launched it, which was we raised the funds in 2003 and then we launched in 2004, and as soon as we launched that, that meant that we actually had a program again that was an umbrella system that was covering every kid that was going to hospital that needed it. So we had our Rapid TLC service, which is quite specific, and then we had the umbrella that we can catch every other kid, regardless of why they're in hospital. So it was quite moving for me because it was sort of like a full circle to start, I suppose, going back to exactly why I started the organisation, is what we achieved 6 years later. But in a very strong and profound way. At the moment, it's actually over 1,709 boxes now. We've just received another 19 orders last week. Now, our distraction boxes are being used on average about 9 times per week each box. At the moment, and each box it works out to be about 468 times per year. Each box is being used. Some hospitals are using it a lot more. For example, the Mater Hospital up in Brisbane in the emergency department, they're using the boxes up to 20 times per day on the kids because there's a lot of kids going through the hospital system. So we're very fortunate and very lucky that we helped over 720,000 times last year during examinations and procedures for kids in hospital. It seems like a big number, which it is a big number, but there's about 1.8 million visits made by kids under the age of 15 going through the major hospitals around the country. So for such a small organisation, and I say small because there's 3 full-time staff members and 4 part-time staff members at TLC, we have our office run out of Burke Street thanks to the City of Melbourne. They've got us in City Village, which is a great initiative. There's 9 floors of non-profit organisations, so we're sharing all our resources. On our floor there's 4 different organisations. And we're able to run our organisation from that one office, reach all these hospitals, which is 405 hospitals around the country, and I lost my train of thought. So I'll go to the next slide. So the emotional wellbeing coming from the distraction boxes and why we're doing our services, it has proven time and time again to reduce stress and anxiety for patients and the parents, which it's a critical part of what's going on within healthcare, because if you can calm the parents down, the kids always feed off the energy of the parents, which is the first thing to look for, because everybody knows if a child falls over and the parent goes, "Oh my God, what's wrong?" straight away the kid thinks, "Oh, okay, I've lost an arm," obviously. But if the parents are just cool, calm and sort of collected, the child doesn't feed off that and they can reduce that stress and anxiety. So that's a very important part of the work that we're doing. It reduces the energy spent by the healthcare professionals trying to calm the kids down. Now, I will be going in, over this a little bit later on as well, but I'll just touch on that, because the energy that is spent from the healthcare professionals trying to calm the kids down, or the energy spent from the healthcare professionals trying to calm the parents down, or they're trying to treat the child, is exhausting. And if you think of a situation like I touched on with the Mater Hospital, if they're seeing 20-odd kids, that's one distraction box being used 20 times in one day, so that's 20 different occasions of service. If they have to calm parents down and kids down 20 times, there's only so much energy everyone has. So we know, and it's been proven, the energy levels will keep on dropping, and we have to make sure that the amount of care and the quality of care that's given from healthcare professionals is always at its utmost. So it's important for those healthcare professionals to have as much energy and focus as possible, and this is where the distraction boxes have come in and they've played a very important part in keeping those energies levels up, because the kids on many, many occasions have actually finished a procedure laughing, which is, when you're talking about hospital visits, it's almost unheard of. So it's a very important part. The other great, I suppose, side effect that's come out of the programs that we're running is reducing the fear and lessening the fear that kids have of hospital visits. Now, I don't know how many people I've spoken to have said, after they learn about TLC for kids, to say, would have been great when I was a kid if there was a service like this, because I hated hospitals, I hate needles, I hated going to the doctor. I was scared of them because it's a big building. It doesn't matter how pretty it looks. And I'll be honest, one of the I suppose prettiest and most enjoyable hospitals I've been to has actually been the Westmead Hospital up in Sydney. It's actually a registered art gallery, and so walking in, there's artwork. It's not a water feature, but it looks like a water feature in the middle. So it's a very calming and very inviting environment for these kids to come in. Then they've got the wards set off in the back and left and right areas. And even the Children's Hospital have done an amazing job now, so they've got the main street there, so it's an enjoyable place to come into. But the bottom line is, no matter how enjoyable it is, it's still a hospital. It's still a place where kids go where 9 times out of 10 there's going to be some sort of pain or fear or anxiety attached to it. And again, by enhancing and focusing on the emotional wellbeing of the kids, if you can remove that fear from the kids, that way the next time they have to go in, or even more importantly, when they have children, they can actually say to their kids, "Oh, it was great. When I went to the hospital, they had these services which played games, and I didn't even know the doctor was doing what they had to do." And that's where we're heading towards, and that's what we want to have, that these kids don't have fear, because it's going to be a generational improvement. The other side that it does, and the other benefit of, I suppose, treating the emotional wellbeing of kids, is lessening the need for pain relievers and sedatives. Because they can calm the kids down without having to administer any of these additional drugs. Number one, it's better off because less in is a lot better for the kids. But more importantly, they don't have to allocate another staff member to watch over that child and make sure there's no adverse effects from any drugs that they may have been using. And also helps the procedure go a lot quicker, because if they're not spending time calming the kids down or putting EMLA on an arm to have a needle that literally is going to take about 3 seconds, can turn a 45-minute procedure into literally 6 minutes. And it's a huge saving, and obviously for the hospital staff, they're loving the fact that they can use less drugs and pain relief for these kids. And the last point there for I suppose the biggest benefit of emotional wellbeing is the turnaround time is being reduced while they're treating the kids. And that just plain and simply equates to them being able to see and reach more kids in hospital in those terrible and drastic times. So as I touched on before, how many programs, how many services we have. At the moment, It's worked out. We do studies. So when a hospital orders another distraction box or they're using one of our services, we've developed a program so it's online. So it actually it's the fastest referral system of its kind in Australia. But we have it in a way so as soon as they log in, and that can be from any computer, and we're in the program, in development at the moment to have apps for the hospital staff so they can actually refer the kids from the bedside, so instead of having to go back to their office, they can do it on the spot. So we asked them to fill out a very short survey to let us know the effectiveness of the programs, how many kids they're seeing, and what's been the highlight, and how many times they're using our services. So the results have come back. It's about 1,750 children every single day are benefiting from our distraction box program, and that's every day of the year, which when you start dividing that down by how many days and hours and minutes there are in a day, works out every 77 seconds of every day, it's another child we're helping in hospital, which is, it's pretty cool. And the non-pharmacological support. So this is a critical one. The hospitals have been focused on this for many, many years. The non-invasive, non-pharmacological support, because again, going back on what I was saying before, less in is better for the kids, less drugs, less sedatives. It's much cleaner for the kids, and it's a lot more beneficial for them and health-wise. So the results have been outstanding, what we've received from the distraction boxes. And this was done to over 400 hospitals around the country. These are the latest stats from November 2012. As I said, each time we get a request in, we ask them to fill out a survey. So we update this information every 18 to 2 years because it just gets collated, but it's actually been improving each time. The top one there, we've actually reduced treatment time and 71% of the staff have said it's had a reduction in time. Now, I can't give the exact stats on saying it's 45 minutes or 6 minutes. These are one-off cases and examples. But to have it that it's even if reduced it by 5% means that it's a better outcome for the hospital staff. Lowering the need for pain relievers, again, 69.5% of the staff that are using our programs have actually had to use less drugs on the kids, which is a massive statement. The stress and anxiety for the patient has been reduced, and that's 79.7% of cases, which is it's a very big percentage, and we're glad they're all up there at the top end of there. And then that next one was probably even more important, is 81.5% of the cases have reduced the stress for the parents working with the kids. We've introduced quite a few different toys, and that last statement there, we asked the hospital staff if it has become a critical part of healthcare and if they prefer to use our distraction box program as opposed to the drugs or sedatives, and that's come back at 74.5% of the staff have said that we've become a critical part of healthcare, which is, it's not bad for such a small team. We're pretty proud of it. This is just one of the items that we use in the distraction boxes. All the items that we do have been specifically chosen by healthcare professionals. They all have a therapeutic and medical purpose. So they can all be washed and cleaned. They can be used in a number of different ways, but most importantly, they can be used time and time again because the boxes are placed within treatment rooms within the hospitals. So again, for multiple uses. And this is our least expensive item, but it's one of the most popular items that we have. They use it for a couple of, well, it's actually three main purposes. One, to check the cognitive skills of the kids so they can check, get them to follow it with their eyes. They ask the kids to blow out any pain, so if they're about to do any sort of procedure that is going to hurt, like a lumbar puncture or whatever it might be, they don't lie to the kids, and it's a very important part. Again, this is the feedback we get straight from the healthcare professionals to make sure that kids know what's happening. So they ask the kids, look, on the count of three, we're about to do this, but on that count of three, blow out the pain. Picture the pain in your breath and blow out as hard as you can. And the faster you make the windmill blow, the less pain will be. It's funny what you say to kids and they believe it. But the other thing they use the windmill for, and this blew me away, pardon the pun, they asked the kids to blow, and this just happened, there was a case just last week, which I was rapt about, and I'm not just making it up because I like it when sort of things happen. They were trying to calm a little girl down she had shocking respiratory problems. So they were trying to calm her down and they thought, look, pull out the box and see what we can do. So they pulled the box out and they asked her to just breathe normally, but just blow into the windmill and just breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. And as she was breathing out, the staff are watching the little girl, the parents are watching the little girl, they're all watching it. And within about 5 minutes, everybody in the room started mimicking the breathing pattern and the heart rate of the little girl, which brought the anxiety and the stress down. Great side effect from a $1.75 item. So we do provide training for the staff as well. and all the items, so they can either replace a single item or it's a single box, whatever it might be, and we replace them up to about 4 times per year. The first 2.5 years of the distraction box program was quite interesting for us, because we found that a lot of the staff were giving the toys away to the kids, moving the kids to a waiting room, keeping the toys, breaking the toys, and it was costly. So we've spent a lot of time training and communicating with the hospital staff, so now they understand how important they are. And there's been a few hospitals that we haven't had to replace an item for a year in the box because of the upkeep has been that well, and it's a frequently used box. So they're great items. We're always going through different changes as well. And one item that I didn't bring with me tonight, it's a find-it tube. It's called a find-it tube. And it's about 30 centimetres long. It's got about 60 different items in it. It's filled with grains of like colourful toys and plastics and things like that. And the object behind it is you choose an item on top of it and you shake it around and slowly you find it. So it might be like a little letter, it might be a hook, or it might be a thimble, whatever it is. And we introduced this find-it tube into the program. And what was happening, the procedure was going on. So, you know, the child's lying on the treatment, on the bed. Doctors started their work, and then the parents actually grabbed the find-it tube, sat down in the corner, starting sitting there playing, and so the kids are watching their parents go, oh, you know, I'm over here. What's going on? So no, you're right. I'm busy. And what's been great though, because the parents have been that calm, not focused to worry about the stress of the child, then the child's thinking, well, okay, so if you're not worried, I've got nothing to worry about. So, and then the procedure goes on. So we've been able to bridge the gap. From recent studies that we did for the program, it was up to the developmental age of 8 years and under for the kids that were using the distraction boxes. Between 8 and 14 years old, every single case, the kids wanted to know exactly what was going on. They weren't interested in the little shiny keys or any sort of distraction. They said, no, just tell me what it is and, you know, give it to me straight. But the find-it tube has actually bridged the gap between 8 years and 80, because it's every age now has been able to use this toy, it's a great development for the program. And the next stage for us is actually incorporating iPad games and apps. We're in trials at the moment at Monash Medical Centre, and there'll be 10 hospitals using iPads and iPad minis for, I suppose, the next stage of the distraction boxes. And the other step that we're doing, which is very exciting, is we're developing an app and a website that will be linking every hospital in the country that's using our distraction box program, and it'll also be providing opportunities for parents to get tips and techniques on distractional tips and techniques for kids before, during and after hospital stay, which will again help reduce the stress and anxiety of the stay. This stat that I've got up here was absolutely fascinating. This was taken, they all, obviously different cases and different situations, but they always check the perception of pain of the kids when they come into a treatment room. So regardless of the situation and what the examination or procedure is going to be, they assess the level of pain or the fear or perception of pain of the child. You can see on the left-hand side there that it's most of the cases up from moderate pain right up to worst possible fear, which is pretty scary. And that's probably a typical snapshot of how people go into hospital. Some people can cope really well, but most people, there's always some sort of fear. And what was fascinating, after they introduced the distraction box and started to calm kids down, you can see that the worst number, which is obviously it's rated from 1 to 10, was 6, and it was only 2.4% of cases, but the rest of them shot right up there to almost no fear at all, and there were quite a few cases where there was no fear at all, which was just fascinating to see the power that distraction can have and focusing on that emotional well-being of the kids. So I touched on before with the ripple effect. So as I said, it goes from the patient to the parents to the healthcare professionals to make sure that they've got enough energy and enough focus to look after the kids. And I've got there, it's a child distracting children at the age of 6. Now this happened just recently. A little girl, she's only 6 years old. She had to come in and have 5 procedures in a row. So it's 5 days to find out what was wrong. And they were quite invasive and it was very scary for the little girl. So on the first day, the first procedure took about 40 minutes. They still used the distraction box, but she was still a bit scared because it was quite a complex procedure that she had to go through. On the second day she came in, the procedure time was cut in half because they used a distraction box and she was already comfortable and knew what was going on. The third day, it was about 7 minutes that it took for her. And by the fifth day, she actually said to the doctors, no, I don't need it. I'm right, you can do what you have to do. I'm fine with it. I thought, that's amazing. Within a 5-day period, from a 45-minute procedure and having high on the fear level to no fear at all and taking control and having that control and I suppose empowered by the situation but not needing to be distracted was remarkable. But the irony was, a couple of weeks later, her 4-year-old brother had to come in and have a similar procedure. So when the family walked into the treatment room, the 6-year-old girl went to the cupboard, pulled out the distraction box and started distracting her 4-year-old brother. We got a phone call straight after the procedure from the nurse that was using the box and said, you guys, you've got kids distracting kids with such a simple program. So hats off. And that was great. It was a special day for us to know that we've been able to do something so simple and formalised and so, I suppose, reaching so many kids. It's very, very lucky, very fortunate. I would like to touch on the triumphs, what we've been able to do since 1998. So it's been a hell of a 16 years, and next month we're actually celebrating our 16th year, which is quite exciting. But overview, we've been able to raise over $10.4 million for an organisation and a service that did not exist 16 years ago, which is just, it still blows me away that even other charities still haven't increased the number of kids they're seeing, and we're still around, it's awesome. We've also had interest from overseas for our services, so the future's looking quite bright for TLC. As I touched on before, we've had it recorded and it's stated that we had the fastest turnaround time for support in the country out of all the charities. We've fulfilled over 6,100 rapid TLC requests, and if you think about it, the critical requests, it's not just a bit of fluff or just something nice to do. These are kids going through traumatic experiences. It's over 400 hospitals, so at the moment it's 405 hospitals we're servicing, which makes us having the largest reach of any charity in the country. We've set up and established 3 different boards. So we have our board of directors, an advisory board and a junior board. And while we've done this, as part of our succession planning and sustainability for the organisation, especially moving forward, our board of directors is there to make sure the integrity and the ethics and transparency and accountability of the organisation are upheld every day. Our advisory board are there to provide special advice for certain areas, be it political, legal, marketing, whatever it might be. They're all experts in their field, and we have 13 members on our advisory board that provide that advice from time to time. And then we've established our junior board, which are a group of young executives that we've chosen, and people have been, I suppose, nominated to be on the board. And this is where we're actually recruiting for our board of directors, which means that sustainability and succession planning of the organisation is in a very healthy situation, because we're literally recruiting almost month by month for our future board, which means that the organisation will keep on going for years and years. Over 1,700 distraction boxes are in use, as I touched on before, and as I was saying, we are reaching more children in hospital than any other charity, which even just saying it still, for me, just resonates. It's an amazing stat to be able to say, and we can say with confidence, out of 600,000 charities, it's not a bad way to be sort of operating and reaching kids. And this last stat, this was fascinating. It was just late last year, went up to Sydney. There's a little boy, he's only 10 years old, and he's in school. And 2 years ago, he started doing some fundraising because he was at school, he was at school sports, and he noticed 2 of the kids didn't have a school uniform. And he said to his parents, he said, well, I don't understand, why aren't these kids wearing uniforms? And they said, well, the parents can't afford it, like they're a bit poor. He said, well, I don't understand. He said, I've got a school uniform, and they've got a school, why can't they? He said, no, they literally just can't afford it. So, this is when he's 8. So he said to his parents, well, what can I do? Can I buy, or can I raise funds for them then? Can I raise some money so I can buy these kids some uniforms? And I said, whatever you want to do. So he took some photos, and he did they were tasteful. He did a calendar, a little calendar, and he sold each calendar for $5, and he raised, it was $1,000, and he bought these kids uniforms and some sporting equipment, and he said, well, this is great. And his parents, obviously very proud of him. So he said, well, the next year then, if I can raise it at 1,000, surely I can raise 10,000. So he went off and he thought, all right, so if I've charged $5 for those calendars, so if I charge $10 but sell more of them, that'd be better. Or even if I charge $5 and I sell 200, that'll be my 10,000. All right, I'll be happy with that, whatever it is. So he's on his little path to raise this money, and he wanted to meet with me because he said to his parents, I want to choose another charity that I can support. So he did the research, all these different charities online. He found TLC for Kids, and he said to his parents, can you contact them, because I think what they're doing is really good. And I was spoken to his mum and dad, and they said, no, this is all Roman. This is, there's no influence from them at all. So when I met him, he's got a little bit of Asperger's, so he's quite energetic and, my God, focused. And he sat there, and we were sitting at the table, and he said, so how many kids, have you helped? Like, I saw on the website, he has a lot of kids. And so it's about 4.2 million kids. He goes, 4.2 million, 4.2 million, 4.2 million. You've helped the same population of Melbourne in kids. What an awesome statement from a kid to say that we've basically helped a city full of people, of kids, since 1998. So I like sharing that story because he's an awesome little boy. Very, very lucky. So some of the challenges that we've faced, especially during the early stage of TLC, to set it up, because a lot of rules and regulations obviously have to go through, and to have the DGR, which is deductible gift recipient status, and the tax exemptions. It was a lot easier back in 1998, 99 and 2000. They've made it a little bit more difficult for people, and it can be quite a costly exercise for people who want to start a new charity. Looking at fundraising licences and requirements have continually changed through legislation, and some organisations get away with a lot more than others, and it makes it very difficult with how many people are actually raising funds out there for different causes when they could be sharing resources and focusing on the same cause. Now, we've got the white noise in the non-profit sector. As I touched on before, there's 600,000 registered charities and organisations in the country. Those with the most money and the marketing budgets seem to flood it all, and as you all know, there's telemarketing. There's every 5 minutes there's somebody else with their hand out. You get every second day there's a day for something, and it's very difficult to try and find that little space because it's filling up rapidly. We've been very lucky. We've been able to establish our Trachea Day, which it's for the month of May. But why it's Trachea Day? It's nice because everyone always smiles when they say Trachea Days. Hospital staff encourage the kids to get out of their pyjamas every day and wear their trackies or casual clothes to bring back a sense of normality for the kids, so they're not feeling sick all the time. It's very important also for the kids to feel that they're okay, so if they're getting a visitor on the day, they're not wearing their pyjamas, and it does change their state of mental health and it improves their wellbeing, so they're prepared for it. And as we all know, when you go home, the last thing you do is put on something more corporate or uncomfortable or a suit. You always put on, most people will have a pair of trackies. So we've been able to get Trachea Day, but it's been very difficult with the competition that's out there, and we've noticed even over the last 4 years, nearly every weekend is filled up with a run or a fundraiser or some sort of campaign. So it makes it very difficult to raise the funds and keep on top of everything. The retention of experienced staff and volunteers is also a huge challenge, because a lot of people have the perception that if you're a charity, you shouldn't be paid, that they expect you to do the work and have qualified staff do this work all the time and somehow eat and pay rent and live. I'm not quite sure how it still works, but the retention of staff makes it very difficult. There are some benefits within the non-profit sector, so you can offer workplace or salary packaging, which helps reduce the tax that you pay, so you don't have to pay as much. But it is a huge challenge within the not-profit sector, because a lot of people go from job to job or charity from charity because they're looking for a little bit more money, a little bit more of an experience. But the volunteers, which is it's a massive area. There's a lot of people working and volunteering for organisations, but so many people put their hand up to do voluntary work. But when it comes down to doing some of the harder work or the things that aren't as glamorous, or not going in to see the kids in hospitals, it gets a little bit tricky and a bit hard, and there's a lot of drop-off from the volunteer industry. So it's even some businesses have volunteer days where they allocate 1 or 2 days a year for their staff, where it's a paid day, but they go on volunteer for an organisation. And sometimes you get staff that come in and they think, well, they have to lick envelopes, so they can sit there for a couple of hours and they'll go off and say, well, I've done my charity bit for the year. Then obviously you get the other people that on the other end of it will just stay around for hours upon hours and truly enjoy that experience. But it's very hard to get good, reliant and consistent volunteers within the non-profit sector. The other problem that a lot of organisations face is the location. As I touched on before, we're very grateful to have the City of Melbourne supporting our services, and Toll are our actually transport partner. So all of our deliveries, and that's anywhere in Australia overnight, is for free. All of our requests for our distraction boxes are delivered for free. All of our rapid TLC requests, so if we have to purchase items, it might be from a business in Adelaide that sells a special wheelchair, we can actually get that shipped over, packed up from Toll, delivered back to us and then delivered to the family, and that's all for free. So pretty much Toll are our lifeline and the blood of TLC, but we couldn't do what we did if we didn't have a transport partner like that. So it's very important where, I suppose, where the offices are based, but the distribution methods can be such a logistic nightmare for people, and very costly exercise as well. The other big problem that, and we had a meeting just a few hours ago with a gentleman that started a charity because he thought it was a good idea. He wanted to do something. But the duplication of services is one of the most critical and problematic things in this country, and many countries, for the charity industry. Not enough research is done into organisations already providing that support. And if people looked at and did the research into organisations that, number one, your heart has to sing, so you have to want to do it. But if the research is done into the non-duplication, the resources, the administration costs and the overheads of organisations would dramatically reduce, and it would mean that services would increase and a lot more people would benefit. And the other problem that does happen within non-profit sectors is there might be 10 or 15 different organisations working with the same family and providing similar support, which means it's a complete waste of resources and time. It's great for the family, but they don't necessarily need 15 organisations providing a fuel voucher every second day for them when one or two of the organisations could do it. So this is just what I've learnt over the last 23 years. It's awesome to be in the non-profit sector. I'm proud as punch to be representing TLC for Kids and representing the organisation and the non-profit sector and being, I suppose, so experienced in it. I do see the problems with it, and by no means do I think I've got all the answers, but some of it just comes down to the good old common sense and just keeping things simple, which would be a lot easier to do. So the advice I could give, I don't know how I'm going for time, probably over under this, right? As I'm saying, do your research and ask as many questions as possible. One great example of this, and it's not an example that I encourage people to do, but we went to a major corporate just recently to get involved and possibly be one of their recipients at their major fundraising event that they hold each year. And instead of doing a bit of research into other organisations, they actually said, oh, you know what, we'll just go with the guys that we helped out last year. It's just easier. We know them, that'll do. Without even knowing the impact they've had, if there've been any change in the organisation or opening their eyes to other organisations. Granted, it gets very difficult to sort of get a leg in, but the key thing is research. And everything's there, the internet's there, knowledge is power, and information can just paint such a different picture for people if you ask the right questions. And pick a cause that you're passionate about. Your heart has to sing. There's no point getting involved with a charity that is looking after dolphins if you love oak trees. Or if it's children or the elderly or dogs or seats. Whatever it might be, it's very important because this is, as I said, 23 years for me, and I'm still as passionate, if not more passionate today than I am when I started, because I can see the future of where we're going. But I truly love it. I truly feel that I've found my calling. But I encourage people to find a cause because it is so enriching in your life to be able to walk away and know each day, at the end of each day, thinking, well, this is good. I've helped someone, I've helped something, or I've made a difference, and I've left my mark on this planet. Because we are living in the luckiest country in the world, but to be alive, I think, in this age is just so exciting for people. So if you can have a cause that you're passionate about, it just enriches your life. Patience is a virtue. I'm sure everybody's heard that, and results take so much time. So much time. Well, some of the relationships we've got with some of these corporates, it's up to 2 years of meeting with them every couple of months, and this is before anything's even across the line, just to get a maybe or a yes. People walk into the non-profit sector thinking it might be easier, it shouldn't be too hard, and if I could count and give you a pile of proposals that we've read, it would probably stand about that high, and that will be the no pile. And it's just one of those things that we know it's all right, because when one door closes, another one's going to close, but there'll be another one that will open shortly after that. So patience is a virtue, and just staying true to it. It's very important. Standard hours. I've touched on this with the volunteers as well. If anybody is interested in getting the non-profit sector or supporting a cause, don't just think, well, if I go there and what time is it? Oh, it's 7:15. That'll do. The hours are sort of you can't even say it's a log in, a log off sort of situation. So, but if your heart's in it, and I was touching on this outside, if you love what you do, you don't feel like you're working at all. So it's very important to, I suppose, just want to be there and not be a clock watcher. Now, never think it's all about you. Ego plays a very big part in the non-profit sector. There are quite a few organisations that have been set up because someone's had a great idea, so they put their name on the cause and they say, well, this is great, this is all about me, I've done this. And we've got a very strict rule with our board and everyone that comes in, so that egos are at the door, because the only reason I'm standing here today is because there are kids in hospital that need the help. So the day that stops happening, I won't be talking to anybody, or I'll be talking about things that I've done because kids needed help. But it's never been about me. The awards that I've been so fortunate to be the recipient of has just been a platform for me to get in front of a lot more people and talk about TLC for kids and raise awareness about the community, the non-profit sector, and people in need in our own backyard. So, but it's very important that ego is left at the door, because especially kids, and this is something I'm truly grateful for to get into this industry, because if you go on a hospital ward and you see kids, you can't put on a fake smile, you can't be fake, because they see straight through it. So I figure, well, I'm happy to put myself in front of them and they can judge me and make sure that, if someone with an ego walks in, we've had footballers, coming through, obviously I'm not going to name them, but footballers come in thinking, oh, look, I'm so important, I'm really good, and then the kids are, well, who are you? And you see them just deflate. And so, well, you have to remember it's about the kids. It's about the kids, not about you. Now, for some reason, people do expect it to be easy and quick to get results and things to work. It's not. That's all I've got to say about that. It's not easy at all. But again, if you've got the passion, you don't care about it. But the biggest bit of advice I can give, and I would like to encourage people to do, no matter what industry or job or whatever you're doing, find a great mentor. I've got, it's actually the general manager of Crown Promenade as my mentor. I see him every 2 weeks, and the changes that it's been able to provide and the growth it's given me is second to none. And I know I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have a great mentor. So I encourage everybody, and as I said, it's not just in the non-profit sector, anything that you're doing, any job, anything you're looking for in the future, find a great mentor, someone you can bounce ideas off and have some leadership, some friendship. But mentoring is such an undervalued and underutilised, extremely powerful tool and a great way to sort of grow in life. So I encourage that, and look around. And obviously you got to I suppose gel with your mentor as well. So you might go through 3 or 4 different people before you get the right one. But when you do find that right person, it's critical. And that is about all I have to say on the matter. So thank you very much for your time.
On behalf of MUHI, I'd really just like to thank Tim for coming along again, for his time and his effort presenting tonight, and also for showing us a true passion for a cause. And I think it's shone through in everything he's done tonight. It's really just truly inspirational. So if you could put your hands together once more for Tim, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you want to do any Q&A? Oh, we are over time.
Does anyone have any questions for Tim? Well, there's some light refreshments out in the foyer, so if you want to stick around and have a chat to Tim, I'm sure, is that okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just remember, it's a gold coin donation. It'll all be going to TLC for Kids, so Stefan's going to be collecting it up the back, if that's okay. Thanks, guys.
And we've got the brochures for Trachea Day as
yes.
well.
Yes, and Melbourne University Medics Paediatric Society, just want to make a quick announcement. Oh, because they're our co-sponsors for tonight.
Thanks, Georgiana, and thank you, Tim, for a wonderful lecture. I just wanted to invite everyone that's here today to the Melbourne University Paediatric Society event that's being held this Thursday at the Royal Children's Hospital in honour of Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome Awareness Month, which is the month of May. A very brave and passionate young lady by the age of 11 years old named Maddie was really, really passionate about sharing her story and what it's like growing up with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome with everyone. So Mumps and the Royal Children's Hospital wanted to help her out with that. So we're hosting a conversation with Maddie and one of her doctors this Thursday night. It'll be held at the Royal Children's Hospital, and there'll be free food from 6 o'clock. And the lecture will be from 6:30 to 7:30, and everyone is more than welcome. So if you'd like to come, we'd love to see you there.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you again.
Wet and cold and rainy. Well, the next one we've got up is Professor Sharon Lewin, who's the local co-chair of the World AIDS Conference. So we're hoping to pair with Red Victoria.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
If there was anything
But yeah, so we've got a couple coming up. Yeah. And then hopefully
Or did it just was spontaneously?
It was pretty much through friends of friends, and just kept on, because I knew I needed it.
Oh, can you turn it
So I
off?
kept on looking out, did a bit of research, and I
that's
saw
okay.
some people in different industries. I had a doctor, head of emergency at the Randwick Hospital, and he was mentoring me for a while. It was awesome, and I thought, look, it's good, but it is in the industry that I'm already in. So that if I branch out,
Yeah, I was just recording the lecture.
both sides of business scale.
In the middle of it, she writes that she's also got that a friend end of life.
I mean, I was in the same place.
That whole debate. So yeah, but after that, I mean,
Would you be interested? If you actually it's all the time, so it's always asking questions, but not being shy about it. Yeah, so think about the industry. Think about successful people or people who have a bit of drive.
I'm also speaking to
learn from, share some experience. Might take a little while. But it's such a difference, such a huge difference. So it's quite ironic though, because when I meet with him, he might have staff issues or something like that, and it'll be, look, we might have the same sort of issue, but I haven't told him. So on the day of our session, we go, oh yeah, look, we did this today, this today. He's exactly the same. So I think when you get in tune with someone, then his problems set my problems as well, and he'll answers for them. So it's great. I highly recommend it.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Bill. I just started a rotation of children, so that was really topical for me.
Oh, good time.
I'm actually the president of this student group, MUHI, and we're currently in the process of setting up an advisory group. I'm just wondering if you might be interested in participating in that, because a lot of issues you discussed about challenges we're seeing in New Zealand right now.
Sure.
Getting insurance and volunteers and that sort of thing. So
I'll give you a card. Yeah. No, give me a touch. I'll be happy to even come down and have a bit of a chat, or see what we can do at some stage. For sure. And that's why I brought them up, because it is difficult sometimes, especially when you're setting up new things. But a lot of those challenges aren't really shared with the general public. Unless someone's talking, from experience. It's very hard.
I think, you're just relatively young, set up this research.
Absolutely. No, but more than happy to have a chat.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Tim. I'm Jenny.
Hi, Jimmy.
Nice to meet you.
I was really fascinated by your presentation. And I was just wondering, do you think you go on like I would love to volunteer and help out in any way?
Sure, absolutely. Because there's different things, as I was touching on. It depends on what's going on in the day, or on the day. If it's some of the fundraising we're doing, or some packing the distraction boxes, or preparing whatever it is.
Yeah.
Fine. Thank you very much.
Alright, so do I just email you, give you like my details?
Yeah, because we'll have a form for you to fill out. Obviously, working with children, checking all that sort of stuff. But it's just standard form. But yeah, just drop me an email. I'll email you back, or I'll pass you on to our admin guy. Admin person.
Yeah.
And he'll drop you a line as well. But no, just drop us a line for sure.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you. And what you're doing is fantastic.
Thank you very much. Can we get a photo?
Yes, of course. We'll go outside because we've got new banner and everything.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.
Is it alright?
No. Yeah, I feel like out of here and then not everybody. I think it's just the day and everything.
No, I'm sorry for spent out of time. I sort of
It's so interesting.
I try and watch my stories, but sometimes
Stories are the best part. Yeah. You really get like emotionally like, just now,
Oh no, good. I'm glad that they came across okay.
For TLC for kids, because I'm quite interested in adolescent medicine. I spent a lot of time in hospital myself when I was about 16, 17.
Oh, okay. Sorry to hear that.
And I was just asking, it wasn't. But what I found was that when you're like what you're saying, 8 years old, you want to know, but when you're 15, 16, 17, you're in a kids' hospital and want to, like medical, but you're not a kid.
Yes.
And then if you have a chronic condition, you spend your life in a children's hospital, you turn 18, kicked out the door. Yeah.
Well, our services, and that's why we've set up, so we're up to 23, 24.
Yeah, 23,
because
24.
we've followed a lot of kids that have been in that situation because they've had, especially the CF kids, their entire life has been in and out, depending on how severe it is.
Yeah.
And then we've found some of these kids when they're 18 going to the Alfred, sharing a room with a guy's been in a punch-up from the pub, or an old man who's emphysema. So this is so wrong. Yeah. So we make sure that, and again, we touch on the emotional well-being, we follow them through until they're ready.
Yeah, because that's something like we were saying, I think that's sort of an area like you guys are obviously doing that isn't as well served as that transitional area, like that 18 to 25. Like you're not a child, but you're not really an adult. You're not dealing with the same things. Like I got my appendix out like last year, and it's kind of like, I want my mum there, like an older lady there, and she's like sharing a room with someone. Like, I don't really feel like I should be here. Everyone's really old.
Absolutely, it's not. It's not the right environment.
And it's a scary
healthy
environment. Yeah, no. So TLC for kids, then they've got programs as well for.
And we do it with it's mainly through our rapids. So if there's, I suppose if there's activities or events that we're doing, or if some of the staff have recognised someone that's come from the children's hospital or children's care, they'll let us know, and then they'll keep on monitoring. So we're branching. We've got a few kids that we still muck around with at the Alfred.
Yeah.
It's something that we've been very mindful of to make sure that